Hi everyone. This is probably going to be my last video to or about EnigmaHood for reasons which will probably become clear as we go on. He left a video response, a comment on my video response to a comment of his, and he accused me of strawmanning his position, which actually I'm fine with, of course. Show me where I'm in error, and I'm generally willing to correct myself, and I'll probably make a correction video doing that. Call me an asshole in the process when I think I've been pleasant and polite and cordial, probably not as likely to do that, right? So he basically said that I was strawmanning his position in that I was saying that he was saying that you only react emotionally to events and that you can't have rationality. And I'm not sure how I strawman his position. I mean, his whole video about the grand jury trial verdict in the Ferguson shooting seemed to be full of irrationality. I mean, that was what prompted my original video. But the interesting thing is, he tells me that I'm strawmanning him by saying that he's got no concept of nuance when it comes to the differences between reacting emotionally to an event and then reacting rationally to that same event. He then goes on and says that civilized society, which I said, is a platitude. Now, I had said that in a civilized society, we recognize that vigilantism is no way to conduct justice. And in fact, many injustices are often perpetrated in the enactment of vigilantism. The riots, of course, are a good example. I think Michael Brown's own church was damaged in the rioting. And if that's true, that's obviously, not to mention all the other innocent business owners and everything, and people that got injured, et cetera, et cetera. So a civilized society recognizes it. Suddenly, with EnigmaHood, there's no nuance allowed here, though. He says, what do you call civilized? How do you define civilized? If we were in a civilized society, we wouldn't have crime in the first place. As far as I'm concerned, we are just apes that walk upright and don't throw shit at each other as much as we used to. Well, that's you. There are many degrees of civilization. I mean, one would hope that we are aiming for, striving for, reaching the plateau of civilization that doesn't include crime as a major component or any component of our society, right? Suddenly, there's no nuance now. In a civilized society, we recognize that vigilantism is not a productive way to conduct ourselves, and that many innocent victims get caught up in that, right? Maybe you need to familiarize yourself with like the majority of the rest of your citizenry. You know what I'm saying? He goes on to talk about how criminal justice books will talk, somehow allude to the fact that it's all just to satisfy a primordial need to seek vengeance and revenge and hurt the people that we hate. And GeoAngle had actually asked him for a citation, and he just launched off on a bunch of insults, which is something I'm going to get to in a moment with regards to racism. So he goes on to say that I've strawmanned him and I don't understand nuance. And then he goes on to strawman me, and I could dissect this comment, but the last one took me almost a 30-minute video, or somewhere around 30 minutes. This one would probably take me an hour. Even GeoAngle probably is not interested in listening to me talk about one comment for that long, so I'm going to keep this as short as I can. He strawmans me when I said that I would be outraged and upset, or upset and angry if I saw a chimp rape. And he says, you would be appalled? You would be distressed and sad to the same level as seeing a human brutally raping and murdering another human? If you would, then there's something wrong with your brain. Well, did I say that? No, I never said anything about on the same level as raping a human. And then he adds murdering in there, which wasn't part of the original discussion. So if you want to talk straw manning, then, pot, kettle, et cetera, right? So one more thing I wanted to point out is sort of the way he ended things. So he says, anyway, I only watched up to 4 minutes and 8 seconds. GeoAngle is actually right. You are long-winded. Guilty as charged. Although he is a douchebag himself for pointing fingers at people. So suddenly, he's a douchebag for pointing fingers at people. Referring to when GeoAngle actually brought out some statistics, not sure where he got them, but where he said that only 12% of the people of Ferguson actually get out and vote in civic elections. And I think that's a valid point. There's a civic responsibility there, especially if you claim that your power structure, your predominantly white power structure, is corrupt. EnigmaHood himself asked the question, why is the power structure predominantly white? Well, that's a discussion we could have. Why aren't that many people voting? Why aren't that many people of color getting out and running for office and trying to become part of that power structure? That's a discussion we could have. You could bring up the reasons why you think that's invalid, but not when you call people douchebags, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to finish by just referring to another comment that he had left in response to the space frog. And the space frog was the one who, I will remind everyone, who came out and said, hey, Mike, you've made this video, but you also asked for clarification in the video. Don't you think you should wait for the clarification you've requested in a comment before you release a video bashing somebody? And he was totally right, and I actually turned that video back private. So, Space Frog is a pretty reasonable person. Space Frog tagged myself in EnigmaHood and said, interesting discussion. EnigmaHood replied, no, it's not interesting. It's stupid. Stop tagging me and dragging me into these inane discussions. Just take a quick look at the comments here. Black Box's subscribers appear to be mostly insecure, submissively racist, old angry white men who have inferiority complexes. Black Box himself is a pseudo-intellectual who I'm sure is a champion to all the Americans who work as janitors, truck drivers, and other blue-collar, low-class jobs. Don't bother tagging me again, I'm muting you. This is a guy concerned about racism. And then just resorts to this classist, tribalist crap, right? Word to the wise, if you're concerned about racism, don't then be guilty yourself of other forms of classism and discrimination, right? I mean, obviously you're using those jobs as insults, as pejoratives, right? It's pretty disgusting. And, in another comment, EnigmaHood got sort of drawn into a discussion about how you can be a victim of racism and be white. And he was referring to a comment by Drakon, who was being a little bit facetious in his comment, and EnigmaHood kind of took the bait. But it's just interesting to me that he would talk about, these angry, et cetera, white men. Well, what is inherent in that statement? That statement is inherently racist because you're insinuating a certain set of characteristics based on skin color. This is the same as bell hooks launching into a comment about the nature of whiteness. Please do tell, what is the nature of the color of my skin? What does it cause in terms of differences in my brain and the way I see the world? So, not too concerned about any discussions of racism from someone who is clearly projecting those kind of comments himself. Thanks everyone for enduring all of this, and happy holidays.